So, when you're dealing with Indian football, there are a few eternal truths that you have to accept. One, the sleeping giant is always waking up. There's never been a time when it was not waking up, it's still waking up. Tomorrow it will still be waking up. We don't know when it will be completely awake, but it's waking up. Trust me, bro. The second fundamental truth is that the Indian men's national team is 12 years away from playing in the World Cup. It was 12 years away in 1990. It was 12 years away in 2008 when AIFF was talking about Vision 2020. And it's 12 years away now. Whether it will be 12 years away 12 years later, we don't know, but it's 12 years away. And now I am slowly learning a third fundamental truth, and that is this podcast is not meant to have a nice, wholesome, happy episode ever. It just doesn't happen. I mean, look at the kind of episodes that we have been having recently. It's been Mohan Bagan's identity crisis, East Bengal fans out in the streets protesting. I thought the interview with the Gokulam Kerala FC head coach was going to be one happy Christmas time conversation, but before I finished enjoying it, the I League got postponed because of COVID. And we were actually planning to do an episode on the Indian women's team's campaign in the Women's Asian Cup. But right when we were about to record it, I got COVID, my voice got fucked up, so we never ended up making that episode. And then what happened? The Indian national women's team fell out of the Asian Cup because of COVID. I mean, seriously, at this point, I just hope Sangam Vihar FC doesn't have a COVID problem in the future because of this episode. We seem to be on a streak about it. But forget that, shit is already hitting the fan over there at Sangam Vihar FC. I mean, I saw that article that Anirban Ghosh, who's the co-founder of Sangam Vihar FC, wrote on Kalpantu's Vuvuzela newsletter, which you should all subscribe to right now. Go subscribe to it. Free plug, by the way. So I thought this is a very interesting, unique project that's happening in Indian women's football. So let's get him in. We'll talk about the whole genesis and the whole mission statement of the club, and we're gonna have a pleasantly nerdy conversation about the nitty-gritty of Indian women's football and what role these independent small academies and clubs play in the ecosystem. So we went ahead, we recorded it. Next day, I was happily editing it, and all of a sudden, this massive thunderstorm comes in and it's lightning all over the place. So I had to unplug all devices, and I was like, okay, I'll finish this tomorrow or something. But then all of a sudden, there's a tweet storm. Sangam Vihar FC are saying they're gonna leave Delhi. They are complaining about a bunch of systemic problems and other irregularities and unfair treatment and a bunch of other stuff that's happening. Abrish Mina, who you know, she was on this podcast before. She's also up in arms about this issue. She was doing a Twitter space about it. So I was like, okay, I can't just put out the episode as it is without getting Anirban to come back and address what's happening now, because you can't really tell an incomplete story like that. So that's what we did. We went back, we had another conversation to talk about all the new developments, and lucky you are basically getting two episodes in one. It's two interviews that serves as an epic documentation of this club that's taking on the whole system and is standing on the precipice of something quite unprecedented for a club of its size. So, for the first hour or so, you're gonna have the nice and wholesome part of this episode where we are just talking in depth about how the SVFC project came to be and what it's doing out there. And then in the second interview, when it kicks in, you're gonna get all the juicy stuff, all the scandals and the responses and everybody getting involved and everybody losing their mind and everything else. So yeah, it's a long episode. Buckle in. This subject matter caters to the hardcore fans of the sport. So yeah, very small target audience. So if you stay till the end, I love you. Give a like. Let's get into the conversation with Anirban Ghosh.
What made you leave a corporate job and just get into this project at a community, and not just like a just a normal project that you see in areas like that, you are actually coming in with a huge ambitious goal. So it's a
Right.
pretty epic proportion that the project has. So what
Right.
kickstarted it?
Yeah. So, I mean, I quit my corporate job around after 6 years, specifically because I felt it was kind of getting stagnant. And I joined the Teach for India Fellowship in the first place. And that was the, I'll say, entry into the social sector. Once I get into the social sector through Teach for India Fellowship, I was teaching in a government school in the same community, Sangam Vihar. And there I was trying to kind of understand, okay, where are the gaps which we can bridge as a teacher, as an educator. And I felt that the learning should be more holistic because my schooling was also in a government school, and it was not the same kind of a, I'll say, situation. Thought of it as a long-term goal to develop the community so that it can sustain the whole, I'll say, initiative, which like addresses two core purposes. A, it gives a pathway to the children from that community to go and play the sport at the topmost level. At this, and B, the community accepts sports as a way of life. These two go hand in hand. And yeah, that is, I mean, in terms of ambitions, what we are looking at. See, what the intent is that I'm saying this with my current knowledge of the country in such in terms of women's football specifically, uh, or in general sports. Long-term sports development is only limited to very few institutions, and to do it bottom up from grassroots is something which we're attempting. And our core intention is to kind of create a blueprint which can break the notions that, okay, development is not about only infra, or not about just scouting 50 players from different parts of the region or the country and getting them together to play a tournament. But it's a slow, steady, and scientific process, and it needs to take in multiple factors associated with the child or the individual. Yeah.
So you are looking at it in the perspective that okay, I'm going to focus on one area and just try to make this a part of their lives, and try to enrich their lives as well as contribute to the sport. So what comes first in your project? Are you trying to build the character of these athletes, or are you first and foremost trying to build players that are going to be successful as professionals later on in life that just happen to come from this area?
I honestly don't think it's a either or, um, because I mean, unfortunately, the existing discourse is kind of that, okay, there's a player and there are like people who are like more around life skills development and holistic development. But I think it's we are boxing it in terms of, when I mean, it's we means the entire football fraternity or sports fraternity. Our objective is to allow the pathway which builds the player education about how to approach the sport. Actually, we started with around 90 girls and around 40 boys. So out of this 130, and we have a 9-year program designed, of which we are based on LTAD model, long-term athlete development model, uh, which is actually almost 18-year long framework. But anyways, coming back to, if say we have 130 kids, all of them won't be donning the blue jersey. I mean, that's very obvious in a way. Do you want people to don the blue jersey? yes, we are strategically working towards it in terms of how to structure the program, give them exposure. At the same time, let's say out of 130, 10 makes it to the squad of the Indian team. That's just a hypothetical number. What happens to the rest 120? They should keep playing at a decent competitive level, and at the same time, in long run, when they at least in the adulthood, able to pursue their careers in other domains of sports. Let's say as a physio, as a coach, or as a analyst, and that's how collectively they can enrich the sporting ecosystem. And thus, sports as a way of life, and sports being an enabler, will only help the community, the parent, to allow children in coming decades to be more proactively taking up sport, rather than in Indian context, barring few states where it is like, okay, I mean, after a certain age, padhai and nahi padhai alag hai, khelna chhod do. So this conflict is a mindset which should also be addressed, and we're trying to address it. But I honestly don't think it's either or, because when we are building a player, the grit, the problem solving, or the in terms of how he or she looks at developing herself, planning in long term, is all a part of that player development. So the lens or the spectrum of player development is quite I'll say wide in the way you're looking at it.
The reason I brought it up is because SVFC is playing seemingly at a quite high level, and I read
Yes,
the story that you wrote on Kalpantu's Vuvuzela, which I hope
right.
everybody subscribes to, whoever is listening.
Yeah, right.
So it it occurred like kids are playing older players, physically stronger players, and they're going through kinds of trials and tribulations that you see in academies or clubs with national ambitions.
Hmm.
Right. So does
Right.
Sangam Vihar FC have national ambitions? Do you want to be in the final rounds of IWL? Is that something within your sights or horizon?
Absolutely. It is. We want to be in the IWL in by 2024, and this is an aspiration. I mean, we have. These are the goals we haven't set this year. We have set these goals back in 2019, and I mean that's how. So when the average age of the team which is participating right now is 15 years, 15.3. So yes, competitive aspiration wise, it is very much there. There is a goal.
Very ambitious benchmark to set for yourself. And I'm just looking at this as a neutral, and I'm thinking, okay, you are limiting your player pool to residents of that area, and
Right.
you are going for a national ambition. Are you not making it just unreasonably hard for yourself to like let yourself work within those close parameters?
I think every decision or every kind of strategy has its pros and cons. So when we have players from a radius of 3 kilometers, it also adds a lot of, I'll say, ease in terms of players gelling together in that context. It eases out a bit of logistical issues as well. Yeah, I got the point. It's a valid point. Okay, we might have taken players from say Kerala or Goa, but as I mentioned in the very beginning, it's both about the player and the player being a part of the community. That bonding of or the connect of player representing the community at the very from the grassroots up level, that connect is essential in terms of building a culture of football in the long run. Silverware will propel that even higher, and that is why it is one of the very clear goals. The silverware goals will also keep us in terms of a very tangible kind of a milestone. Yes, but when we have those players in the same community, that community feeling, which generally we miss today, and I have experienced a bit of it, and there are, again, I go back to multiple countries as examples where community centric football clubs or sports clubs has a different appeal on how they are being developed and built, be it the Basque region or be it the Catalan. I can understand now they have also changed a bit. Uh, but I think there are some values which we want to stay true to, that guides everything. And one of the core values we want to stay true to is that the, the connect of the community, seeing their kids grow up to the topmost level. So the silverware is an outcome of that process and that philosophy and that values. It's not the other way around, that to silverware is the only target.
Everybody else who's pursuing a local academy or a club project like you are, none of them talks
Mm,
about going all the way to the national level. You
right.
ask them like what they're trying to achieve. It's like, oh yeah, we're developing 10, 15, 20 players, and they're gonna get trials in different clubs, and they're gonna get picked up by those clubs, right?
Mm-hmm.
This is the first time I'm hearing somebody who's saying like, I'm going to take on the whole country with kids from this 3 kilometer radius area, right? So
Right.
just, I don't know,
Yeah.
am I being repetitive? I'm just still trying to perceive the
Mm-hmm.
you saw that movie Manji the Mountain Man.
Yes.
It, I don't know, is it unreasonable to compare your project with that, given the odds that are against you, numerical odds basically?
There are, and I think I mentioned that word blueprint. What happens in my little experience, I've seen that what you're mentioning is right, that there's a feeder kind of a system at play, which has its own merits and own structure. And I'm not saying, okay, this doesn't work, but yes, there are, the goals we set are very high. I'll disagree on the point that it's unreasonable, uh, because again, it comes back to why are we doing what are we doing. If an academy A or B has set the goal that, okay, I'm going to feed into, say, Bhopal FC, that's it, or say Bhilai FC, that's their goal. I mean, if 100 clubs or 99 clubs out of 100 does that, it still, I mean, doesn't limit anyone from attempting. Okay, how about being patient and being methodical and actually trying to explore, experiment. And we have been doing this not for 1 year, 2 year, it's been 4 years. I mean, we're in the fifth year of the program. We have the same set of kids who started out of a public park, and we still have mostly those spaces to play. We do have spaces, but yeah, with constraints and everything, the same set of kids have broken into the top division, who started out at the age of 10, 11. At the age of 15, they are playing in the Premier Division as the youngest team in the league. They have qualified the championship level and they have as a table topper. So we see some proof points. Yes, the challenges are there. We respect those challenges, or the steepness of the mountain to climb or to break, like Manji. But I mean, it's the blueprint which we see, what we're trying to start, which has just started to connect the dots.
So you are willing to like keep at it no matter how long it takes. So that's like the goal cannot be adjusted. Does not matter how much extra time it might take. Is that the approach here?
So when I mean how much time it takes, see, yeah, I think 2 points here. First, we have set a 9-year goal for ourselves, and there are obviously yearly milestones. And so far, I think we are pretty much on track towards that. But as we move ahead, the road will be much tougher. Yeah. So, and how much time it takes? Yes, I mean, it might be not be 2024, maybe 25. Uh, that's fine. That's absolutely fine. But I think the ethos or the basic tenets of the project uh, have been and will be on similar lines, because we have already started to develop the, I hate to use the term, but the pipeline of players from the same community to come in like under 12s now, to form a team, and maybe 2 years down the line, hopefully they will get into the championship of the state level. And when this current batch will move on to challenging, I mean, at least the IWL group stages.
What do you think has been the
Mhm.
biggest challenge to keep the whole ship together and keep it going?
First, to keep the parents believing that, okay, I mean, sports will reap some benefits in short, medium, long term. And that needed a lot of work with the parents. Again, that is something which I haven't heard academies or clubs do, because, and we're talking about a slightly different demographics here, but that doesn't define our goals, that doesn't influence our aspirations or anything. But I mean, just for the context, in a community where, like, early, I think the same article, if you refer to early marriage, or I think the challenges of sustenance are very, very, I'll say, vivid there, to pay for parents to believe that, okay, this is something I see, I mean, there's a potential. And just seeing is one part of it. Also be making parents aware of, okay, this is where your child is kind of progressing, and this is where he or she can reach, needs a lot of on the ground work. And we make it, I mean, that relationship building or those awareness building happens through a lot of parent program, like parent work, visiting their homes, holding parent workshops. That's a challenge and a success both. uh, and I think this is the one part. Second part, I think, uh, see, for an outfit like us, it will be always be a resource challenge. But and that is where we improvised, and we are still improvising. I mean, we didn't have a permanent full pitch football pitch to play yet. But we train 11 months a year, at least 10 hours a week. We have played, I mean, the bunch which is playing right now in the Delhi Women's League, they have played 10,000, 11,000 minutes across multiple formats, friendlies, competitive minutes, not internal matches. So, to ensure this, in an I'm coming very specific to the women's football ecosystem, to ensure this many training hours, or this many matches, and then to follow it up with a, I'll say, tactical build up, recovery, and all those support is in a very frugal, or a very resource humble setup. Yes, it's challenging, but I think that's also allows us. I mean, we know that it will be challenging. That, yeah, we don't have like a full-fledged setup. We kind of working toward it. But if it comes up, it will be obviously adding more, I'll say, strength to the logistics, and I think working of the whole outfit.
The biggest, one of the biggest issues that people face is funding and other constraints. So, does this take up all your time? Is basically what I'm asking.
This is a full-time effort. Absolutely. Funding is a huge challenge area, especially ongoing or post-COVID era. It's even more challenging. But I mean that how if the question is how I run it in terms of then as I majorly have when I started out. I kind of got some fellowship support, some incubator support, and but I mean also parallelly I have to I attempt some projects I like freelancing and like that. But I still say in a 50-hour work week, maybe 35 hours is minimum what mm, is goes into building this dream.
How do the kids and all the students and all the players that are under your wing, how do they manage to put in the required time? Because to be frank, the task in front of them is going to take like all the effort that they can muster, right? And they're already coming from a little bit of a challenging economic background, and so they must have other pressures as well, including education. How do you think they are doing managing
Mhm.
all those and still fitting in a football program with it?
How they're managing the pressure of studies and sports, is that the
Yeah,
question?
yeah, yeah. Yeah, basically studies, sports, and other societal pressures that also come into play. I think you mentioned about, in the story that you wrote, you mentioned about kid who was getting marriage pressure from her father and everything.
Right,
So things
right.
like that. It's not easy, especially the kids who are not coming from a affluent background. They don't
Mm-hmm.
really end up making that kind of time in the middle of their demanding life to like actually pursue a football career in a way that gets them to the highest level.
Yeah.
It's a story that we see all over the place. A talented player, but does not have the money to like travel to a
Uh,
coaching center or like go to the academy, and that's it.
our program is absolutely free of cost. Shoes, footballs, playing tournaments is what we support with. I mean, the registration fees, uh, travels also majorly, physio, almost end-to-end support, which we have been keeping in place for last 5 years. Yes, in terms of committing, there are two major deterrents in terms of the basic necessities or requirements to continue playing and playing in different platforms are taken care by us. And in terms of the parental pressure or the parental, I'll say, challenges, we mitigate them by building a rapport with the parents. That's pretty much a part of our program. It's not one of a thing. Dealing with the parents is a part of the program.
You guys just do it yourself, or do you actually like seek help from other volunteers who might specialize on those kind of interactions or something like that, or is it just informal? Everybody knows everybody, and you're just doing it together.
In terms of parental interactions, I'll say it's us only. Yes, a part I very much resonate with is everyone knows everyone. That's core idea that's how we should function, and so that makes things easier. Like for us to also take parents along who have been whose child have been with us for let's say 5 years now, to some parent whose child is like new maybe, and parents talking to parents, we have a kind of those kind of structures or strategies to navigate through the challenges. But in terms of expertise, we do from other non-profits or volunteers when it comes to I'll say sports psychology support or sports nutritional support in terms of how to go about nutrition, how to go about individual psychotherapy sessions if needed. So yeah, that those are the areas where experts are needed, and I think we attempt to reach out and get that support.
4 years in, and you have been dealing with kids from the age of 9 to 15. Would that be right to say?
Yeah, Yeah, I mean, one or two are now 17, but
Okay.
majorly, yes, 9 to 15, 16 roughly.
Normally if you just take a considerable sample size, you see a considerable amount of drop off around that age. So what has
Yes.
been your experience with that? Have you been losing a certain percentage of players, and how much would that be?
I mean, we have focus on data to kind of assess how dropouts happen, and everything here has a lot of data which plays a part here. So I'll just share a bit of data that out of 10 kids joining, at least two, if not three, will drop out within a year, in spite of all the structures in place. And if you ask me reasons, someone might have study pressure sometimes. That happens. I mean, there are multiple, and some parents might stop. Okay, one day someone is late, and then they are getting any. कल late हो गए थे तो वापस नहीं भेजूंगा, and all that. I mean, societal mindset plays a role. Out of the 7 remaining, one minimum drops out after another 2.5 years, 2 years, I'll say. So by the end of or the third year, we have 6 left out of 10, and we are yet to see how it pans out in the next 4 years. So there's an initial dropout. After that, the kind of ship stabilizes for 2-3 years, and then again the teenage, I'll say, behavioral changes, and that plays a part. But we have also been able to, let's say, get back out of those 30% or 35% of the dropouts. We have been able to get back at least 7 to 8% rejoin the program, not once or maybe multiple times. So you don't let, okay, you can go now, or okay, gaya to gaya, theek hai. But this is the data what we have seen.
The higher you go in terms of level,
Mm-hmm.
the drop off is
Mm-hmm.
expected to be higher, because like you can't have a like Premier Division team with
Mm-hmm.
more than 35 players, whereas if you're just going back to the academy level, you can even have 200
Mm-hmm.
kids. There's no limit to it. Like, are you taking that into account, or like we have not arrived at that stage yet?
Yes. No. I mean, we have taken into account that I'll say that I'll drop out, and what should the size of the entire squad at multiple age levels, and so that the squad which is, say, let's say under 12 or under 11 right now, and when they progress to under 15s, and those who are under 15s right now, when they go to under 18s, obviously they will lose out on players a bit. It won't be like 100% retention. As I mentioned, the data clearly shows us, but the data has also some patterns which it shows that there is a initial dropout, and once that settles, the dropouts, we higher we go, there are dropouts, but it is not in bulks. 2 kids, 3 kids drop out from a squad of 25 in a year maybe, and we reinforce that from the junior batches.
Are you experiencing any attempts to poach? Are other clubs and academies trying to take away your players so far?
I don't know how to answer this, because see, in terms of Delhi NCR region, people at least knows us, and poaching won't work in our, I mean, the set of our players, just because of the relationship and the parental relationship we have. Much lesser attempts, I'll not say zero, but I think that's one area which till that we have seen very less threatening, and poaching won't have a major impact in our setup.
So far, you have probably participated in about 100 plus tournaments with various age group and different squads.
Mhm.
Can you like mention one or two campaigns in or one or two competitions which have been particularly memorable for you and the whole team?
The ongoing season, I mean, of the Women's League, because we started playing in the Delhi Women's League in 2019-20 season, which was called off due to just COVID onset. Then last season we played. I'm just giving a bit of background because why it is memorable. And last year we played 4 matches in the group stage. We drew 1, lost 3. This time we played 4 matches in the A division and qualified the championship. I mean, whatever the name you can call it. We lost 1, won 3. We topped the group, and we qualified for the Premier Division. So this Delhi Senior League is a big, guys, the biggest stage for us, and that's quite memorable and quite. I mean, that's the reinstates the whole belief. Okay, that the progress is happening from last season to this season with almost same set of kids and happening against players or against squads who are an average age of, let's say, 8 to 10 years more than us. And also, I mean, I don't have the exact figures to support it, but maybe the budgets, which is 5 times of ours or 10 times of ours. So that's a memorable tournament, the Delhi Women's League, especially this year's edition championship phase. The other one, I think, for players and us is the Hindustan Times organized a competition, used to organize, called JIFA. We won the sub-junior category in 2019 again. And that is the first time kids won a prize money. And that was I mean, for everyone in their family also, that, okay, football can actually bring some financial hope as well. I'm not saying that should be the expectation right now from a kid age 13, but that instance was a very memorable one for a lot of kids and their parents.
You are the nature of challenges that you're going to be facing in the next 5 years is going to be different from what you were facing in the last 5 years, right?
Sure.
You will be like just testing yourself against a higher level of competition. It's a bit different from the challenges you might have been facing 5 years ago just to get this whole project off the ground, you know,
Right.
because
Right.
it seems like if someone comes in with a target as vast and large scope as yours, it's not unreasonable to think that some people might think, okay, you're like trying to bring down a whole army with one cannon, right? So what do you think is like proving to be more difficult, just facing this high level of competition or those initial difficulties that you had to wade through?
As we progress and face higher teams and challenges, there's different level of difficulty which comes in terms of, I'll say, setup and a lot of how to navigate those throughs against those teams or in those tournaments, especially in a country where the calendar is so there's no calendar basically in a way. So I mean, how to keep the team going and achieving the milestones. I honestly don't have a specific answer to this because there are challenges which we can foresee. Okay, we have to keep the squad intact. Yes, so how can we work towards it? How to prepare the team tactically or overall, like as an outfit, how the fitness. Yes, we can work in terms of say, let's say, take nutrition and like their video theory sessions and everything into account, making them play against. We actually play a lot of against boys teams locally, so to prep them up. But I mean, these are things we can foresee that, okay, you get mentally and game wise conditioned to the tougher opponents, so that we can prepare for. And we are preparing for. But what the other part you mentioned, that this initial hiccups, I mean, by now, honestly, we have a sense of it. Like, okay, this is how to approach building a new squad. This is how to approach parents while enrolling. And we are still learning, of course. But I think we have some idea what not to do, what to do in terms of setting out into a new block in that community. how to go about it. So I think we have some experience, learnings and insights about the later part, which you mentioned, that taking the thing of the ground, and that's what will help us. And to make this squad and the performance, I think we have the process clearly defined on what the input goals are, and we have some output or outcomes in mind. And I think we discussed this, that outcomes, I mean, we are more focused on process goals and rather than outcome goals, and that has still date, I mean, worked. And I mean, that's a big shift in the thought process which we are looking to establish. Not to look at 1 year, 2 year, or one player. I mean, or one so-called. I mean, we don't use this term internally, talent, because honestly, I personally don't believe in the word talent, and there is body of research around it. I mean, that's a different discussion, but yeah, I think that's where we are. We more in the forthcoming challenges. We like to keep our focus on the things which are in our control and keep our input or the process goals tick boxed, I'll say.
Yeah, that's going to be interesting to see what happens when the stakes are raised against you in terms of competition and you face those bigger challenges. Of course, we have not, like, this is not the first time we have interacted. We have had it, discussions on Twitter before, and
Right.
this is something I just want to bring in because I'm trying to understand the perspective that you had when we were going back and forth on Twitter a few days ago. I was like just coming up and saying that all these ISL clubs and maybe some I League clubs should be compelled to play in IWL through licensing. Not IWL is the wrong word. They should be fielding a women's team as per the licensing requirements, national licensing. I believe that it's going to be beneficial for women's football as a whole. I think there was some disagreement from your end. So could you just
Mhm.
tell me what I'm getting wrong?
I mean, see, I mean, first, it's not about who is right and who is wrong here. I just want to clarify that. And I'll state based on my experience and what I think on that line of discussion is that when we look to develop, there are two goals. A, to develop the women's football ecosystem, and B, to develop the performance levels, be it club wise or age grade group wise, team wise. These two are connected very strongly. So more teams or more clubs coming in is most welcome. No, no, I mean, no debate or nothing, no disagreement around it. The point I was trying to kind of convey is that there is a existing pool, however little it might be. Now, what's happening with them? And that is my bigger disconnect with the Indian football in general, that are we attempting to do too many things and stretching far too wide rather than making it more hyper local, making it more decentralized, and ensuring that the children or the girls or even the boys who are playing the sport right now, what can be added to their experience journeys through the existing academies. I mean, for example, if Delhi have player pool of 200 women slash girls, one part of it is expanding it to maybe 400 in coming 2 years, and maybe two clubs or three clubs starting and developing players is a fantastic thing. But also for those 200 existing players, what is there for them to keep their hopes alive? Is there more game time? No. Is there I mean, year long access to facilities to train? No. My point was, when we talk about if ISL clubs comes into men's football, or I mean, that's will add on to the quantum of tasks or quantum of inputs which must go into developing the game or the players, and we are already as an ecosystem, I will use the term, failing to live up to those inputs with the existing pool. If the national team plays for like an average of 5 matches in a year over the last 7 8 years, and there's the senior team I'm talking about, maybe 8 matches. I have data exactly. I need to look at it. If the national level leagues or the states league spans for 20 days, how about making it 4 months long league that will automatically allow more players to kind of see the opportunity to or pursue the game a little more seriously, or the clubs to also it will filter out who is more serious in terms of actually growing the sport. It's not a carnival, it's a long term quest, and that's by design of things. Currently that line is not there, which is at the end of the day not helping the players. That's my point.
Okay, taken. But if these clubs are coming into women's football, that makes
Mhm.
the whole ecosystem more decentralized since we have more stakeholders in the fray and more clubs and more options for players to go into. And having more clubs might actually lead to longer leagues. So isn't like bringing them in part of the solution so that we just have more weight behind the engine, so to speak.
Uh, so I think there are 3 4 different points in what you said, and I'll just answer very specifically one by one. So having more clubs mean more options. That's very obvious. Yes. More clubs, longer league. No. It all depends how the league is designed. A 24-team league can happen over like 20 days or 30 days. 15 or 12 team league can happen over 4 months. It's how the state associations intend to set up the competitive calendar and for the players. When it comes to resources, decentralization, there are enough small clubs, small outfits who are doing the, I mean, work for. I mean, it's not just us. We are pretty new, I'll say. How about actually getting more support to all of them? Okay, these are the grounds, come and play here, this is your slot to play here, and I'm talking about any part of the country, not about Delhi only. So are we optimizing or maximizing with what we have and adding more clubs? Fantastic. That means if clubs with more resources, infra comes in, those resources, I mean, that can be opened up also for, I mean, people who can use those. I mean, it needs in terms of widening the pool of players will be helpful, but at the same time, it might lead to a perception, and it often does in Indian football, that bigger the better. What about depth? We don't look at the depth, we don't look at objectively where we stand currently, and then maybe add ISL, I League, or even new outfits. But what are the goals they have to adhere to? Because what licensing criteria mentioned, I mean, we all can see the youth I League structures for boys. Have we tracked down as a federation and ecosystem? Okay, how does it progresses? How does it developmental goal wise fits into the country's footballing aspirations? With there are multiple issues. Not only age fraud is one of them. I have been a bit vocal about it also, and will be. But does it really fix the issues of for the players, for the clubs? So my only point is, not I'm not against anyone and joining this ecosystem. It will help everyone, but are we maximizing or supporting current set of players outfits, or are we setting goals as associations, federations to do that first?
Let's say you are asking for more support and more facilities to be given to the existing clubs. And that's obviously a very important requirement if we are to progress as a footballing nation and the ecosystem to develop. Obviously, the ISL clubs and some of these more stable, financially richer I League clubs, if they come into women's football, they're not going to be like eating into the resources provided by federations to the clubs and academies who are, active in the space. They're expected to have bigger budgets. The price of one male player is more than enough to run a women's team for the whole season, isn't it? If we're talking about an ISL
Yeah.
team. Well,
Okay.
actually, right? I mean,
Okay.
what do you think is the annual budget of a IWL level club around now? 50 lakhs, 60 lakhs?
Unless someone recruits foreigners, yes. I mean, maybe lesser than that. Maybe lesser than that.
It's well below 1 crore, right? Most clubs
Yeah,
don't
yeah, yeah.
spend
It
one
is.
crore.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so that's like a one decent foreign player earns more than a whole expenditure and salary of a women's team in India. And
Mm-hmm.
so you can imagine like they when I League and ISL clubs or whoever it is from a popular club with an established name, if they're getting into women's football, they're not going to be treated as a academy or a club that has actually started up with smaller resources in the women's football, right? So they're not
Okay.
eating into the resources of others, and at the same time, maybe they're adding that kind of monetary prowess, and they are like using their own ground and becoming one more option for the players. And we might even just see them try to poach players from other teams. At first it may be negative for those teams, but we get a financial war going. It actually ends up
Mm-hmm.
creating a situation where more players can think about like actually making a living playing football. Isn't that the case?
Financial prowess, yes, financial prowess. I am with you in that. Yes, they will bring in financial prowess. They are not eating up. I haven't said, and I'm not at all saying that they will come and eat up something or destabilize or disrupt something. It's not about what those clubs will do. I'm coming from a perspective of, where I'm coming from is that nobody is stopping, or there's nothing against from new clubs to join or like open outfits. How on what we can do with, let's say, 10 clubs now and maybe 15 clubs who maybe I League or ISL clubs or non-ISL clubs in by 2023 or 24 is something need to be defined first. It's not the other way around that the clubs will join and this will automatically happen. If there isn't a stable structure or like some basic I'll say hygiene factors in terms of how sports football runs in, and then what happens that in already a very shallow vision ecosystem, and I'm making an opinion here, but yes, it is kind of tilting the whole ecosystem to even think more short term. And also, if you look at ISL clubs or like I League clubs, financial prowess or the startup capital is one thing, but financial sustainability, there's a different discussion altogether. But we have some ideas that how highly unsustainable currently the whole thing is for a footballing ecosystem like ours. Why don't we take smaller steps, break down those steps, and be very, I'll say, steady in that instead of aiming something very wide canvas and right away thinking of okay making it big. We generally, it shouldn't turn into a narrative that okay, now earlier only 500 girls played, now 5,000 girls plays, so the level of football has developed. No, the participation numbers have developed. So maybe we can say that okay, the perception has shifted. Fantastic. but does that automatically guarantee that there is a level of football is growing, or the practices of talent development? I don't believe in that word, but in what I'm just in the ease of understanding for everyone, that are the players getting more support from the clubs? I don't think so. So that is my point. I'm coming from a very player's perspective and kind of a, I'll say, administrators had somewhat, and I have nothing against new clubs joining, but I am a big believer in taking small, steady, and long-term view action plans rather than this number game.
Just to like arrive at a common ground between us here. So let's say
Yeah.
you are told to envision the Indian football league landscape at the national level 5-6 years later. Does it look something like, okay, we have an IWL that runs 6 months, and it's got about
Mhm.
14 to 18 clubs and promotion relegation, and
Sure.
this top division has a fixed season, right? These are the clubs who play only at the national level, and they know how many matches they're going to play from which month to which
Mhm.
month. So they get to
Right.
plan long term like that, and they get to stay there
Right.
unless they get relegated. The second division looks a bit more like the IWL we have today, where clubs start from state level and they win their way to the
Mhm.
national division, and there if they get to be the top two clubs, they go to the first division of IWL, where they get to like
Okay.
be a long term full season national level club, maybe home away if we are lucky, right?
Okay.
Does that
Okay.
fit your vision of what we need to have at Indian women's football?
Maybe what I say will overlap what you mentioned, but I just think from the bottom up. That's my way of thinking. So when I look at league structures, I first look at a state level. And at a state level, there should be district level and block level or subdivision level. So the subdivision level and the district level should continue for a good 4 months at least, and that leads to the state level, which will have at least a 2 month window, and then we have like a 4 month IWL. And I don't think even in next 4 or 5 years we should look at IWL two divisions. I would rather look at IWL being played by 20 teams and across home and away format. Yeah, but that will involve a lot of travel. So maybe breaking it down to zones. I don't know. That's some in a way sounds good idea in terms of logistics. But yes, maybe home and away or something. We have to see the logistics. But in terms of the idea, maybe IWL a 20 team league with a home and away format, which guarantees 36 matches. That's a big thing. So it can span for 4 or 5 months, and the rest 5 months is limited to the state level. And by state level, I mean state and district and subdivisions. The biggest part I am connected to is to have those this subdivision or the blocks and the district level going for at least 3 months, 2.5, 3 months. That guarantees a decent base level of game time to those 5,000 new joinees. I'm just taking an example, and that's how it will start. So that's how I look at it. If we take care of the bottom, I think the top evolves accordingly. If we don't take care of the bottom and work only of the top, it will collapse.
So, yeah, that's where the first interview ends, and now we are going in about 6 days later on 26th February, where the twist in the story has already kicked in and we are working our way to the climax, so to speak. Let's continue.
So what happened all of a sudden that created this reaction that you are now looking at moving away from the one place where you based the entire operation on?
It's not all of a sudden one fine day, one specific incident. Uh, just to clarify that. And in terms of move away from, the base is like we are exploring or thinking about how to find better places to competitively proceed in the, so-called pyramid of footballing structure in the country. But just to clarify things, that the community we have been attached to, we will be attached to. So it's not like we are leaving those players or the community we have been working with, but the thoughts of exploring how to find better, I'll say, space and supportive ecosystem for us to proceed further. Now, answering what happened, I mean, there's a series of events. It's not one event, and which can be categorized majorly into three buckets, I'll say. And this experience encompasses both the championship, which was the qualifier phase for this Premier Division, a tournament before that, and the ongoing Women's Premier League. So this is a cumulative experience. First thing is, if there is a clear evidence of not being parity in terms of how teams are being dealt as per the tournament regulations. For example, just to start with CRS and CMS, the Central Registration and the Competition Management Systems. In the championship, we have categorically pointed out that player registrations have continued for a couple of clubs beyond the deadline of 12th of December, but no action was taken, which led to a team adding 9 players after their first match, which they lost. So this just, I'll say, not help the teams, us, I'll say, and teams like us who have duly completed the process. Also, since we have been in the ground and I have been observing opponent matches, and there's a lot of hush talks, and I will make it on record that I've heard, club, and I will not name them, but there's a lot of club people talking to add players while their second match was ongoing, which is bizarre considering the deadline is at least 8 days or 10 days over. Coming to CRS-CMS again, we categorically pointed out there have been duplicate player profiles being created to avoid the loop of NOC being issued from, or like transfer process from a different federation where they have been playing. And the response to that was a plain rejection that we can't do anything. Player registration is up to the national federation. While since we have done the player registration, we know that until and unless the state body approves, the player registration doesn't goes for a further approval to the All India Football Federation. And one last thing on the CRS-CMS issue is that one of our players who we are supposed to add while completing the deadline has already been added with a forged signature by a different club without player consent. We reported it, and after at least 5 days, that fraudulent registration was cancelled. We had the attestation or the letter from the player, and we reversed that registration and re-registered that player from our squad. But in all this while we lodged a complaint, the moment we lodged the complaint against that club of that particular incident of the particular player, the status of approval of that player was under process, and over next 2 days, it was approved by the state association. And we have been told that anything which is left with unattended or unresolved for 3 days gets auto approved. I'm not sure how it works internally from a federation and national CS perspective, but these are CRS CMS related issues which literally opens up a lot of room for vague and this is not transparent practice, and this is being also tacitly encouraged by allowing this to happen, and it leads to a very gray area of where corruption can foster.
So are you looking at this as a people in the federation are being corrupt directly, or you're looking at this as the system itself has allows them to be just inactive and everything just automatically happens?
The system is run by the people, any system, right? Nothing happens automatically because there is a due process. The people in the system, and I'm putting it very clearly on record, are not acting in a way which entrusts players and officials to say that this is a decent ecosystem to work and develop the sport.
So where do things stand now? Have you approached Football Delhi directly with your complaints, and have you received any reply about like what they're gonna do about it?
I'd like to add the rest two parts which I mentioned, and then I'll answer this one. May I?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So the second part is very clearly related to player safety, and it is related to officiating. A part where officiating has human errors, which we all understand because it's a very dynamic situation. But when it comes to what is a safe play and what is unsafe play, is very, very clear that if something is serious foul play, has to be cautioned, has to be taken action against. And we have like instances where players are being kicked in the stomach. The knees went to the head level against our players. And it was like after protesting on the ground for like 10 times, 20 times, maybe one time it was heard. Even yesterday, there's a match. Both the goals, which are scored in a span of 7 minutes, were offside, clear as daylight, and we have footage. And we have mentioned it to the Federation Football Delhi as well that, and we have footage of the earlier issues as well, because we record matches for our internal analysis for the team analysis purposes. If they want, we can share with them for course correction. But I mean, no action has taken in the issue of officiating. Thing which was very, very, I'll say, shocking. What happened yesterday is that the fourth official was associated directly until last year, as per the CRS records, with the opponent, with our opponent yesterday. And everyone in the Football Delhi circuit knows that fourth official has been and quite likely is still a part of that team against whom we are playing yesterday. And it's a clear, conflict of interest. This is one part. And the player safety, the parents are now really scared if they are seeing their kids getting back with like serious injuries again and again, and nothing being done about it. Nothing. We have complained through portal, through the CISMS portal. We have mailed it to the Football Delhi. We have spoken in person, WhatsApp them, and the same referees being assigned or the same quality of officiating we have experienced. The third part is about the organization of the league, be it the championship or the Premier League. On the field, in a match sheet, every match is a match sheet. There is a name of a referee assessor and a match commissioner. There is no match commissioner of the 7 games we played across the championship and Premier League. The referee assessor was not present at all. Whom to reach out to with complaints then? Match sheet mentions the name, but practically on the field, there's no one. So it's a gross falsification of data. Then who is the authority? If the match commissioner is not there, who is the authority to take decisions, listen to the concerns, and ensure that the competition is happening as per the norms being laid out. And when you protested, the protest fees have slabs of like 5, 10, and running up to 60K. And you've been told 5,000 रुपए है, protest कर लो. 5,000 रुपए पहले दे दो, protest कर दो. So this is a very blatant way of suppressing genuine concerns from the parent body. And now these are three major concerns. As far as the question of whether you have reported it to the Football Delhi, yes, we have reported it to Football Delhi through email multiple times, and the consolidated of all the issues, the detailed document of all these issues with evidence have been shared on December 29th, the day we played the last match of the championship phase. And in this 52 days till Feb 20th, when the Premier League started, nothing has changed.
Where do we stand now? Are you going to complete the season? Are you going to, not continue in protest or something like that? Are you considering some extreme step like that?
We, yesterday, I think more than officials, the players were extremely demotivated, and all of us collectively decided to walk out. And we did that. We forfeited, we mentioned that we are forfeiting the match, or because we don't want to continue in a atmosphere like this. There are Football Delhi officials and who came and just said there might be serious I'll say sanctions against the club, against the players, their future. And also some of them also requested, okay, let's complete this. So as of yesterday, all the players were very dejected, and some of them were in tears actually, because it is like very, very heartbreaking. But we kind of requested, and they played the second half. But as far as we have only one match left, which is on 28th, and we are awaiting the response from the association. Yesterday, also post the match, there's an in-person conversation with the Football Delhi officials expressing this concern, and why we don't want to continue, why we don't feel safe and a trustworthy space to play matches or as per like work through the competitive sphere here. We haven't heard back anything, and this is in addition to our earlier official emails which we sent like month and a half back. As of now, I can't comment on this, and we are awaiting what the association has to resolve and say, and then we will think about it.
So have you had any conversations with them regarding what exactly are the conditions that if they are met, that you would be feeling okay to continue? Because I'm just looking at the tweets that you put up, the information that you shared, a lot of these are super entrenched issues with the system, and one does not expect them to be resolved overnight, right?
Okay.
Has there been a conversation where you said like, okay, these are like 5, 6 specific demands. If you provide us this much of protection, we can like come to an agreement where we're gonna continue playing?
No, because our complaints or protests have not been addressed at all. We just received a reply like a month back when they sent the mail that, okay, we'll put these concerns before the league committee, I think that's sort, and we will get back. So, we have raised our concerns time and again, and we haven't heard back concretely from the federation, or they haven't reverted with an opportunity to have that discussion. So once that happens, maybe we can talk more about that. Just to point out one thing, that when we say overnight, it's really not an overnight thing, because years after years after years, at various point, the term things can't change overnight comes across, and this is just I honestly feel this is just an escape route, that things can't change overnight, so let's deal with it. But ultimately, the players bear the brunt of it, they suffer.
True, I'm just playing the devil's advocate because I don't expect Football Delhi to fix everything. at a expedited pace. So I'm just
Yeah,
presenting
they
scenario to you.
haven't at all responded in 52 days. Things remain where they were.
You saw the tweet by Shaji Prabhakaran. He was replying to Blue Pilgrims, and he was saying that heartbreaking, and he will look into it as soon as possible. Do you think like it's a sign that Football Delhi will be finally waking up and doing something about it, since they are being forced to acknowledge it publicly for the first time, I guess?
Until and unless anything, any discussion is formally initiated, how can I assume or trust, or we can trust that it will happen? Because the patterns in the past doesn't indicate that way.
If we are talking about like preparing for the worst case scenario, what are you looking at? Are you looking at joining some other state association where you will be like playing in that league or something like that?
Yes, that is one of the major thoughts we are kind of brainstorming into.
Okay. Do you think like the adjacent states that you have around Delhi, you will find a better situation than what you have at Football Delhi?
I don't think we have gone in depth of doing that comparative like as assessment or like strategic assessment yet. We are looking into possible opportunities, exploring things, but whether it is a nearing state or nearby state, whether it's a far off state, at this point, I really cannot comment very specifically on that.
Okay, but you're also taking on a very big extra burden, right? If you are moving away from Delhi, because a lot of your operation was concentrated on Delhi, and as you said earlier in the previous conversation we had, limiting yourself to a small area plays into that requirement to manage travel costs and other budget issues that you might have. It's just a few people who are running the whole operation. Are you like thinking about it, like the amount of extra money that this will require to move away and all the extra pressure that it puts on you?
One thing I again would like to clarify that our work will be primarily based out of that community. That community's identity and its relationship, collective relationship, is the core thing. What we're looking at is a formal representation in a better, safe ecosystem, or where there is a more fair opportunity and transparency to function as per the comparative league structure. So yes, there will be additional expenses, the magnitude of which we are currently haven't like fine tuned or narrowed down to. I mean, what's more important is to have the confidence in the players that okay, we can take the pitch without thinking about all these things will haunt us, and to ensure that is the responsibility of the club or the project of or us actually. That's non-negotiable, so whatever we have to do to ensure that we will do.
Yeah, so that's where we are. Hopefully, Football Delhi steps in. Shaji Prabhakaran takes a direct notice of the matter because it seems SVFC are not really getting a fair treatment from some of the lower level staff that Football Delhi has. And to be honest, I would like to see an amicable outcome that everybody is happy with, that allows Sangam Vihar FC to stay in Delhi. Because I keep saying Delhi is a completely underutilized, underdeveloped gem in Indian football. It's got such a long history, a very loyal, untapped fan base, and real passionate projects like this, like SVFC or Delhi FC or some other clubs that can make a mark for themselves, that can create an identity for themselves in our capital. Down the line, these are going to become landmark institutions in Indian football. And just think of the story itself. You want to see ambition like this. How great a story it would be if players who all come from this tiny locality make all their way to the final tournament of Indian Women's League. What a message of hope that would be. That would just tell us that there's no dearth of talent in India. All we need to do is to fix the system so that we identify and utilize talent, and we will improve for real. We will get to a place where we are not constantly 12 years away from playing in the World Cup. But if we let down institutions like SVFC, I am sorry to say, that's not an indication that we are making progress. Thanks for listening. We'll be back soon with the next episode. Take care.